employees worldwide at their most vulnerable and insecure moment. Due to COVID-19, recession worldwide, salary cuts, job loss, retrenching, pink slips, terminations, etc. Is there an answer or solution to this? Can we make the employees more secure? Watch this video for the complete solutions to all the problems.
Hi friends, this is Nixon De Silva and welcome to my channel Nixon's Take. The objective of this channel is to take up important issues that matters to most of us, and in this episode we are taking up the issue of fight for corporate justice for all employees worldwide. This is a just fight for employees where they are not exploited at their workplace and their financial security is not compromised, especially when they lose their jobs. Having said that, at the same time, it is definitely not a fight to arm twist the employers, but it is to work in perfect sync or shoulder to shoulder for the mutual benefits of both the employees and the employers. In this episode, I am going to talk about severance pay compensation to employees or unemployment allowance for all those who have lost their jobs. It is also a fight for those who may lose their jobs in future and to make sure that their financial issues and compensation is well taken care of to a large extent. I will explain how we can solve this problem to a large extent by solutions which are scientifically and rationally thought out. So please watch this entire episode till the very end to reduce or eliminate your financial insecurity arising out of job and income loss. The solutions chalked out are not only relevant for all times, but it is even more relevant, especially in this COVID-19 scenario where the entire world has gone into recession, retrenching, downsizing of staff, organizational restructuring, etc. Employees who lose their jobs are traumatized in most cases when there is no income and there are bills, EMI, house expenses, children's and parents' responsibilities, other liabilities, etc. to take care of. If that employee gets a job soon, then the damage is not that much. But if it takes a long time and he has to wait and struggle for months and sometimes even years, then what will he or she do? Many a time it leads to desperation and in some cases even lead to commit suicide. Since this solution is for employees, one might wonder or ask, why not withdraw from the Provident Fund or from the retirement funds to tide over the financial problems due to job loss? Well, the answer is very simple. The retirement funds, as the name suggests, are for the needs of the employee after his retirement, but in most cases he or she is no longer able to generate income like in their younger days. Further, the retirement corpus becomes meaningful or decent enough to take care of the retired person because of the cumulative effect due to the employee share, the employer share, and the interest that gets compounded year after year. So ideally speaking, no employee should ever withdraw the retired funds before his retirement as far as possible. So how can the impact of this financial problem be reduced, if not completely eliminated? Is there a solution to these problems? Friends, the good news is that there's definitely a solution. Further, to add to it, the best part of the solution is that there are absolutely no losers and every stakeholder is a winner. I'm sure we can't come out with a better solution than that. The best part of the solution given is that it is A, viable, B, practical, and C, most importantly, implementable. One of the primary or immediate solutions to job loss is giving severance pay to all employees who have lost jobs in all cases except unethical, cheating, and integrity issues. I propose a 6-month severance pay to employees who have lost their jobs, and this is the bare minimum compensation, and employers are free to give severance pay much above this level as per the company's affordability and profitability. Employees otherwise individually are not in a position or strength to fight or negotiate severance pay either at joining or while parting ways with their employers. In short, both employees and employers gain from the employee severance pay or unemployment allowance scheme. Now the big question is, how to generate and get the big funds required for severance pay? Friends, the good news is that this is very much possible, practical, and also viable. After giving some thought on this, I have come up with the following sources for funding the employee severance pay or unemployment allowance scheme. The first source of financing is from 1. Corporate Social Responsibility Fund or CSR Fund. Let us first understand what exactly this fund is all about. CSR Fund is a fund where companies are generally supposed to give or undertake charity work up to an extent of 2% of the company's net profit. The percentage may vary in different countries as per the laws or voluntarily as decided by corporates. But its objective is mainly to do charity at the corporate level for causes like uplifting poverty, social work, etc. at the local or national level. I propose that 1%, that is 50% of the CSR fund, be allocated for giving severance pay to those employees who have lost their jobs. This is because just as charity begins at home, every organization's first and foremost priority, responsibility, and charity should first begin with their own employees. Especially this is so because they are the primary and most important reasons for the company's profitability, and therefore, before a company helps other people or organization, they should first help the own employees and then the other needy in the society. I don't see any problems or objections from corporates doing this to help their own employees because this does not cause them any additional financial liabilities as the amount is already set aside because of either legal provisions or voluntarily by corporates for CSR activities. The amount reserved for CSR activities runs at billions of dollars for most countries having this social responsibility scheme and will go a long way in helping employees who have lost their jobs. On a rough conservative estimate, the CSR amount at 1% of a company's net profit could be at least a mind-boggling $150 billion, which is surely a humongous amount to take care of the employees to a large extent who have lost their jobs. The second source of funding is from companies' share to employees' severance pay fund. The second and most important contribution will be by the corporates who are employing the employees, and their profits are largely due to the fact that employees are working hard as a team with integrity, loyalty to get maximum profits for the employers. So it is very important that corporates to make sure that their employees' well-being are well taken care of, because the byproduct of this employee reform will be even more profits to them and a very good work environment for all employees. To this end, I want to suggest a nominal 4% of the total employees' salaries and wages expenses of the company to be kept aside for the employees' severance pay fund by the employer. This, as mentioned, is a nominal amount, and therefore the corporates will not have any objections to it. Let us see how significant or insignificant is this 4% additional liability to the employers. A study and analysis have been done of more than 2,000 corporates with a mix cutting across all industries from manufacturing as well as service industries, Fortune 500 companies as well as multinational companies, national and international companies, profit-making companies as well as loss-making companies, to get a very good flavor and idea whether severance pay is viable and practical to employers or not. You will be pleasantly surprised at the results analysis you come up with after the study, which is completely in favor of severance pay or unemployment allowance for the following critical reasons. 1. Employee expenses or salaries you won't believe are fortunately and surprisingly extremely low and less than 10% of the turnover for all industries and companies. 2. This gets even better if you take manufacturing companies where employee expense or salary is hardly 5% of the company turnover. 3. For service industry, the employee expense is about 15% overall. 4. For loss-making companies too, the employee expense is about 10%. 5. For IT and software industry, the employee expenses is about 45 to 50% of the company turnover, but the profit margins are also much higher at about 20 to 25% of turnover. So there is enough scope for employees' severance pay provisions. In short, our study concludes that there is more than enough scope and bandwidth for companies to have a provision of 4% of the total employee expenses for severance pay, which in actual terms, taking the average employee expense of 10%, means it is just about 0.25%, as this will be taken as employee expense in the income tax returns of the company's turnover. So it is really a very minuscule expense liability of less than a quarter or 1/4 of just 1% and can be easily absorbed by almost all corporates. The most important reason for introducing the employee severance pay reform is because the whole business model is heavily skewed in favor of only 3 stakeholders and leaving out the employees. This is because A. It is only employer-centric, as the main objectives are the company's profits. B. Consumer-centric, as they have to be satisfied with the company product or service or they'll be out of business. And C, government-centric as they get their dues and taxes. But the only stakeholder which gets a raw deal and the wrong end of the stick are the company employees, who are not only the main reason of the company's profit, but also, most importantly, take care of the interest of the other three stakeholders. And in the eventuality of losses or to increase company profits, many a time they are dropped by the employers like a hot potato and are terminated from the job. This is precisely the reason why this anomaly has to be rectified by implementing the employee severance pay reform to make sure that businesses are also employee-centric and all four stakeholders' interest is taken care of, which will only strengthen the whole business model and correct the long overdue gap and will help businesses flourish even more than before. The government should fully back this very important employee financial security reform, which not only takes care of the employees who have lost jobs, but most importantly because the government too benefits from severance pay to employees, as they would also get various revenues in terms of income tax and other indirect taxation out of the severance pay income, which they would have otherwise not got when there is no income to employees. So the government, in its own interest and without batting an eyelid, should make this an act on the similar lines of employees' provident or pension fund scheme or employees' gratuity fund scheme, and pass the resolution in Parliament as an employees' financial security reform. Friends, does anyone have any doubt whether this will be accepted and implemented by corporates? Well, the straight answer to that is corporates will definitely accept and implement the employee severance pay reform for multiple reasons, which I will now summarize. A, because it is a just demand to compensate an employee who has lost his job, his income and his livelihood. B, the additional financial liability to corporates is not very high. In fact, it is quite minuscule, that is only about 0.25% or a quarter of 1% of the total revenues or turnover, and this financial liability can be easily absorbed without affecting their business. C, this will definitely go a long way in employee retention, and this in turn will save the corporates a lot of money on employee retention schemes and also replacement and training costs of employees for a little investment in severance pay. And the employer benefits far exceeds the amount invested in severance pay fund. D. But finally, the most important reason why they will implement this reform is because if they don't implement it, then there is a very high possibility of customers, clients, employees, backlash of the corporates to boycott the products and services of such companies who doesn't care about their own employees and are insensitive to their pain, and so doesn't implement this financial compensation reform. Moreover, most clients will also be employees in some companies or the other. This boycott will surely hurt the corporates in a very big way, and even if the sales come down by just 15 to 20%, losses will be tremendous, and to sustain the business operations might be very, very difficult for many companies. Further, the client's employees will reward those companies who are early implementers of this employee severance pay reform. So it is in their very own interest that the corporate should definitely implement this new employee severance pay reform happily and at the earliest. As mentioned, the best thing about this solution is that there are absolutely no losers. All the stakeholders will be big winners when it is implemented. Friends, now to conclude, I would like to mention that with the support of each one of you, we will make this a reality. And not only the current employees, but all future generation of employees as well will benefit from the implementation of the employee severance pay reform or unemployment allowance reform by getting this very important clause as a compulsory part of the employee agreement with the employers right at the very onset and start of joining the company itself, and they don't have to beg or be at the employer's mercy later because of the hire and fire policies nowadays. We are also starting an online petition for clearance of this employee severance pay reform or unemployment allowance reform shortly, and will need maximum support from each one of you by bringing an awareness of this reform to everyone around us so that our voices are heard in the right corridors of power. So friends, we think severance pay or unemployment allowance should be a compulsory employee reform to take care of employees' financial insecurities arising out of job loss, and you want to see that this reform becomes a reality, and you want to do your bit to support yourself and every employee for this just cause and bring a change, then please like this video, give your feedback of your views, whether you agree or not, in the comment section below, which will only help all of us to pursue this reform with even more grit and determination, and share it as much as possible. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel Nixon's Take and press the bell icon below to get immediate notifications of my next video. Watch out for this space. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video up to the very end. See you again in my next video. Until then, this is Nixon signing off for now on behalf of everyone from Team Nixon's Take channel. Goodbye and have a nice day.